Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us live on Blab. I'm Megan at wholeed.com, and with me today is Jess Ryan, a parent support coach from B.A.D, Mom, Good Mom. And we're here today to talk about not fighting with your teens and tweens and what to do when it inevitably happens and how to not beat yourself up about it. So welcome, Jess. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm so glad to talk about this topic. I have a lot of things I want to cover. But first, can you give us some background about you and about what the B.A.D in Bad Mom, Good Mom stands for, what your business is all about?
Yeah, so, as you said, I'm Jess Ryan, and I'm a parenting support coach, and I specialize in working with moms of tween and teen daughters who are pushing all their buttons and turning just about any conversation, however seemingly simple, into an argument. So I empower these moms by showing them exactly what to do when their kids are driving them crazy, so they never have to feel worried or guilty or unsure about their parenting again. And the way I do that is with my parenting framework, which is called ILU, and that's tech shorthand for I love you. So it's an easy way to remember it. And I'm sure we're probably going to be talking more about what that means later in the interview. But even though ILU was developed for moms of tween and teen daughters, it can be applied to not only any parenting relationship, but any relationship at all. So even relationship with a partner, a spouse, a coworker. So it's great. It's really simple. It simplifies your life, but it's super powerful and can be applied, pretty much anywhere. So I refer to myself as the bad mom, good mom, and there's a few reasons for that. When my first daughter was born, I got a severe case of postpartum depression, and so that had a huge effect on me and on my parenting. And so what was supposed to be one of the brightest and happiest times of my life.
Right. That's when everybody around you is like, aren't you so happy? You just had your baby. Yeah.
Right. And, if it's the darkest time of your life, you aren't feeling great about admitting that. And it really was. It was the most difficult time for me. So, there's a lot of guilt and shame surrounding that. Yeah. And, the struggles that I had kind of never really went away. And when my daughters were toddlers, it became, it culminated into the worst time. So I was feeling super overwhelmed, frustrated, irritable, and just not in a good place to be parenting, especially a pair of toddlers that were 17 months apart from each other. Yeah. So, I was feeling like a bad mom pretty much 100% of the time. And all I wanted was to feel like a good mom, So that's where, that part comes from. And also the B.A.D part, I treat as an acronym for bipolar anxiety and depression, because I've struggled with those conditions for a really long time and their effects on my parenting. And I've come through them and just done so much healing around them and can have a positive relationship with my daughters, despite those. And out of all that struggle came my ILU parenting framework. So good did come of it.
Wow. So you've been there and you've seen that, you've done it when it comes to parenting, when it comes to personal struggles. Was there an aha moment? Was there a time when you went, I kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel for being the parent I want to be, or a crisis moment where you went, I don't want to have another day like today. I better find something.
Yeah, I kind of had both of those. And I remember a particular, time when they were toddlers and things were just going downhill quickly and feeling terrible. And I don't even know what really happened, but I just kind of had a veil, well, not really a veil, but like a heavy, wet blanket lifted off of me. And I don't advocate for or against medication. I view that as a personal decision. But for me, that particular medication I was on at the time was not good for me. And I said, I need
part of the damp blanket on you.
Yeah, it really was. It was kind of numbing me out completely. I felt kind of like a slug with occasional bursts of rage. So it was.
That sounds terrible. That sounds like the worst mascot ever. Slug with occasional bursts of rage.
We need to come up with a name for that, you know, for that.
You're the acronym queen. I'm sure you can come up with some initials for us. Yeah.
Yep, totally. So my sister said, you know, I'm worried about you. You're just not yourself. And that's when I started, you know, coming out of it. And for many years, I did a lot of healing and a lot of work on myself. But I kind of felt like, you know, I had reached this plateau. And then I had this aha moment when I was at a conference for my coach training with my coach, trainer, and mentor, Martha Beck. And I'm an introvert, so, you know, even though the room was filled with people that I really liked and admired, I just was burnt from all the social interaction. And there was one more talk left, and it was called Loving with Wild Abandon. And I just said, oh, I don't think I can't listen to this, you know. I go back to my hotel room and hide under the bed. But as soon as she started speaking, her name was Leanne Raymond. She was wonderful. And I was captivated because she was so grounded and genuine and loving and interesting. And she was talking about her dad and how she always knew that, you know, her dad loved her. And I think she said, I knew that nothing I said or did would ever remove me from his love. And she knew that deep in her heart. And I got very upset and started sobbing because I thought, you know what? I don't think I'm communicating that to my daughters. I mean, I loved them every second of every day as deeply as I could, but was I sending that message to them? I don't
sure.
think so.
In several more decades, would they be able to be the person who gave that speech and said,
Right.
I never got it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I thought, you know, I can't go another day without them knowing that in every ounce of their being, every day forward. And I just committed myself to learning everything I could about parenting and researching and experimenting myself and, you know, making sure that they knew and they understood that they were the most important things to me, and I wanted to be the best mom that I could for them. And so that was really a turning point as well.
How powerful to see it, to see the possibility of it by somebody else being the child in the situation, or, you know, the grown child. You go, I want my children to be able to have that. A lot of parents of my writing students tell me that, you know, fights about homework are inevitable, and they feel bad about it, and all parents feel bad about fighting with their kids. What's your, I don't know, how do you help parents with the guilt of fighting with kids, which is inevitable? We all fight with the people we love. But what's a good strategy to use when parents are just stuck in that loop of, I want my student to do well, so I'm, you know, trying to get in there and help, but it makes a fight, which makes me feel guilty. How do you break that cycle or get in there?
Yeah. I mean, you're right on with that being a cycle of, you know, when we're fighting with somebody, we aren't in our true nature. You know, we aren't grounded, we aren't ourselves. So we say and do things that are not reflective of our true nature, and we regret them, you know. And so we feel guilty, we feel shame, and we beat ourselves up for it and judge ourselves, making us feel even worse. And then when we interact with that person again and it gets heated, as it often will with a tween or a teen, we repeat the behaviors again. So it's really tough cycle.
And sometimes there's a resentment, right? After you get mad and then you feel guilty about it, there's kind of, whether it's conscious or not, there's kind of that link with that person of, you made me feel guilty last time and I resent you for, I noticed that in myself anyway, in my relationships with other adults, is make me feel bad. I don't like feeling bad.
You know, that's a great point, and that's something that I struggled with for a long time, because I tended to hang on to when they did something that made me upset and take it personally. And so one of my fundamental tools, you know, is called reset. And I just would tell myself over and over again, reset, you have to reset, you know. And at first it didn't work very well, but now I'm at the point where I really can, you know, I really can reset and let what happened go and start fresh. Not to say I never will revisit it with them at a calm time, but, you know, I can just not hang on to it anymore. So that is one way to break the cycle. And also, you really just need to learn to not judge yourself and be kind to yourself. And that's way easier said than done, right? If it was easy, we would all be going around doing it. But
right. Just be enlightened. Just
stop it,
But I do want to ask you more about the reset, because that sounds like it's a very practical road to letting go of some of the stuff that might be bigger and take a lot longer. But when you say reset, do you have kind of a mental process you go through? Are there some physical things you do to, because I love that term. We were talking about computers right before I started recording, and making sure that they're not going to crash on you. And in the same way, you don't want your system to crash on you. And just sometimes you preemptively go, okay, reset, make sure you're functioning. So are there some specific tools you use?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the first things I work on with my clients is establishing a daily practice. And if you think of your stress level as being water in a glass, and picture the water just as full as it can be, so it's bulging over the top, and just one more drop in there is going to cause it to spill over. It really doesn't matter what the drop is. It could be that your dog stepped on your foot, or your husband looks at you the wrong way, but you're going to spill over. So we work on getting the level in that glass down so that you can handle more stress, and be in a place where you can deal with things easier and not get upset so quickly. So that's kind of the preemptive thing. And
which also sounds like, sorry to interrupt you, but it sounds like in order to do that, you also just first establish the awareness of how full are you at any given moment.
Yep. Totally. Right. And a lot of people are walking around not aware of how full they are, you know. So awareness really is, the first step. You need to be aware that you do want to change. And so a tool I use if I want to reset in the moment is space. And I always tell my daughters this constantly when they're arguing with each other. I'll just say space, and they go away from each other, because sometimes we tend to gravitate towards each other when we're mad at each other, and want
There's a lot of energy in anger or bad feeling. There's a lot of energy, and it builds quickly.
And it's all about, your child is going to try to get you to engage with them in whatever manner they can. And sometimes to them, they want attention, and if it can't be positive attention, they're going to get the negative attention, and they just want your attention. So this is another analogy I love, which is thinking of it as a rope, and your child's holding one end of the rope, and they want more than anything for you to pick up the other end so you can tug on it.
More,
So don't pick up the rope. That's another mantra I have in my head. Just don't pick it up. Don't engage. And it's very difficult, because they know your buttons, because they know what triggers you, and they will go for it every time. So it's difficult to stay calm and stay grounded.
I really like the way you termed it. You say to your daughter, space. And one of the things I notice is that, in a moment of anger, in a moment of conflict, words fuel the fire, right? Because you're not communicating in a genuine way. You're really trying to see the other person's point of view and understand, and it's harder to think of the words you want. So I love that idea of it's just one single word that triggers a set of behaviors, and you don't have to try to, in the moment, explain, well, your sister might need some time, and try to make her see the other person's point of view. Just a simple cue, like a snap of the fingers. And was that something you all talked about ahead of time and said, okay, when we say this word, this is what it means?
That's right. So we talk about things like that in times that are good for everybody to talk about them, not when somebody's upset. So, we talk about that, using that tool when we're calm. Now, I use it too, and at first when we started using it, I had to use a lot of words and explain, Mommy's really upset right now, and I need some time to cool off. And they didn't like that. They would follow me. So after they got used to me using the tool, I said, space, Mommy just needs space. And they would respect that and understand that I needed to just go cool off. And that, I get mad too. It's not just them. We're all human, and we all get mad.
But that was wonderful, and I'm imagining that puts it in a different category, because there are so many things. I don't have children of my own, and I greatly admire parents, and I just think that must be the toughest job in the world. And I like being an auntie. That's about my speed.
Yeah, right.
But there are so many things we feel comfortable about teaching children, right? So, what's the protocol when you're going to cross the street, or how do we behave in the supermarket, or, any of these things that are instructional that can be really positive experiences. And I like the idea of, training for what do we do when one of us gets activated, in the same way you train for what happens if there's an earthquake, or in California we have that, or what happens if there's a fire, or any of those things you would want to teach your children so that they're safe physically. You can translate and teach so they're safe emotionally. And I just love the idea of like a family strategy meeting for, okay guys, what are we going to do when one of us just needs some time? That's so
Yes,
cool.
you're totally right. And the most powerful way to train them is to model it. And so we talked about, the unconditional love with the talk by Leanne Raymond, and that's the U in ILU. So I just want to mention that the L in ILU is leadership. So you're really asking yourself, how can I act like a leader for my child? Your child wants a leader. They want somebody they can feel confident in and that they know is going to be there for them. And being a leader is not about controlling and bringing down the hammer and using power. It's about,
we've all been in that situation, whether at work or somewhere else, or somebody squeezes the life out of everybody else by trying to lead in that way, and it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Totally. And, power is a tool, unfortunately, that's used by a lot of parents. And I'm, guilty of it as the next person. But even if it does work in the short term, it's not going to work in the long term. And
what do you do when your child becomes taller than you or louder than you? Or
That's right. That's right. You cannot maintain this control forever. And what you really need to do is model the behavior. So don't tell them, show them by acting it yourself, and not by saying, look at me, this is what I'm doing, but just by doing it. And I mean, they're going to watch you and they're going to do what they see you doing more than they're going to listen to what you're saying. So modeling is a huge component of the leadership.
Yeah. And then that makes perfect sense with what you were saying. When you say, I need space, and you walk away, that's a very different message from you exploding in rage. And then when they get upset saying, we don't yell in this house. And the kids go, wait. I noticed a different rule.
Right.
So what are some common triggers? I'm curious. Well, first of all, I'm curious how your daughters are now, and what are common triggers and what have been common triggers, and what are triggers you see with other parents, times when it's really hard to implement these tools?
Yeah, my daughters are 10 and a half, and my older one just turned 12. So we have lots of triggers in our house. Yeah. And they're very familiar with mine, and they'll go after mine, they'll go after each other's. So yeah, I mean, I know that you work with parents and students on coaching them with writing, and I'm sure that frustration and triggers come up a lot with that. And I know that is something in our house that
homework and
yeah, I mean, homework is difficult because we want more than anything for our kids to succeed and be happy, right? That is our intention. And intention is the I in ILU. So you need to always be asking yourself, what is my intention? But
okay, that makes sense. If I'm going to lead, I want to know where I'm leading people. I want to not have it be haphazard.
Right.
Okay.
And sometimes we end up doing things that produce the opposite effect, So if our intention is to get our kids to be responsible about their homework and feel like an intrinsic motivation to do it and complete it well, but we're bringing the hammer down on them and forcing them, we're really not achieving that end result that we want. We're not.
It's so difficult. And what I see is the relationship is so close on both sides that I see for parents that it's really hard to, they don't want their kids to be hurt, even in small ways. And what parent would? So it can be very hard to step back and let natural consequences come through. And I'm not talking about your student fails out of school, but like, you didn't turn that assignment in on time, or you didn't do your best work, or whatever it was. It's really hard to let those natural consequences come through. And then on the other hand, for students, what I see is there's so much pressure that they feel about homework with parents, because there's the deep emotional relationship and that question that we you brought up of the unconditional love, and the kids are always going, is there something that I'll do that will make mom and dad stop loving me? No, I don't mean consciously. I don't mean hopefully they're not, stressing out about this. Right. But it's just kind of in our nature, right? We're always looking for that connection. So when you're getting help with a difficult task from the person you also want to have the unconditional love from, it can get really hard to separate, oh, my mom is saying I didn't, proofread my essay, from my mom doesn't love me. Those things get wrapped up, they get they get conflated. So, what I say to the parents of my students is, don't take it personally if your student doesn't want to listen to you about homework. There's a feeling there that the relationship is so intimate, it's hard to bring work into it. Your children will more likely listen to a stranger walking down the street who says, "Why don't you write your essay about this?" than you. And it's not anything about you or your knowledge as a parent or as a human in the world, but it's that feeling of not wanting to mix the two. They say don't mix business with your close relationships, and it's kind of what happens with homework help.
I agree. I found that myself as well, and that's why I think it's so important to, hire someone like you, a writing coach, to have that objective third party, and just, it's a very different dynamic. And then you can remove that tumultuous relationship that goes on when you're trying to help your child.
Or just to implement the strategies, like you were talking about with the full glass of water. The first step is just to recognize what's going on. And so if parents are really committed, I feel like I can help my student and I want to help, to just have that open conversation about what triggers each of them. So instead of it getting, the conflict repeating again and again, having a dialogue, like you were saying, when things are not tense, have a strategy session, sit down and go, okay, what would be a good way for me to help you with your homework? Or what would be a good plan when you have a paper assigned and I know you might need some help scheduling, but I don't want to nag you. What are some those calmer moments?
It's critical that you're asking that in the form of a question to the child. And I think that's something that can be overlooked, because we want to tell and we want, but when you are asking them, they feel respected. And you're showing them that you do value their feedback, you value their input, and you respect them. And they're going to be much more receptive to having that conversation if you are asking them, what do you think? And instead of saying, well, I think you should
and
do
at the
this,
same time, that's where you're going to build the long-term skills. And again, thinking about all the things that parents teach children when your child's first learning to walk. There are going to be times of falling down and stumbling, but that's what gives toddlers the drive to get back up and try again. And we're hearing that more and more from psychologists, from educational researchers, that we need to let kids fall and fail. And it's a very scary idea, not just for parents. That's scary for me when I work with students. Like, I don't want, this. You care a lot when you work with young people, and it's that feeling of, if I could just, support you and put a safety net, and then my better judgment says, but where will the learning come in, right? So, and there's always a balance there, because we don't expect that tweens and teens will figure out all the lessons themselves. We don't, most of us no longer subscribe to, you take the real little kid and throw him in the pool, and that's how he's going to learn to swim. You do some instruction and you offer support, but that's a great learning as well. So do you do regular strategy sessions with your girls? Do you guys have regular times you sit down and talk about how things are going, or do you take it as it comes?
Yeah, we do. We try to do it at least a couple of times a week, and everybody has a chance to speak without being interrupted. And we have it now. It doesn't always go that way because, it's hard when someone's saying something about you that you don't think is true.
Sitting on your hands, biting your lip,
and so that's what we're going for. Is it's important for everyone to be heard and to know that their perception is their perception and your perception is your perception. So, and we try to have a theme each month that we'll talk about, and really, I want to hear from them a lot. I want to hear what they think about things. And so I try to remind myself, like, don't tell so much and just try to, hear. And they're so wise. They really are so incredibly wise. So I learn a lot from them.
Impressed by that, because you think of 10 and 12 as ages when all kids, but maybe equally across genders, they don't want to talk to parents as much. That's starting to be the retreat inwards. That's starting to be that I'm a teenager and my life is my life. And to give them that really strong impetus to talk and share, because they know that's a time they're going to be heard, that seems huge, right? It's building a habit that we're not just going to all recede into our rooms or have our headphones or have our screens all the time. Wow.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Right. Yeah. And at the same time, I never force them to talk. Why would I? I mean, there's been many a time where somebody is just not cooperative and they say, well, I guess we're just going to have to talk about it at a different time, because if I force them to participate, it's not going to achieve the end result that I want. So it doesn't make sense.
And that seems like it's just a fair part of having that that respect. And I'm curious how you balance that openness and the listening with, hey, I'm mom, and sometimes you just have to suck it up and do what I say because I'm the adult of the situation. Maybe not in those exact words, but how do you make that balance of listening, being receptive, respecting, and also saying, all right, here's where the boundary is?
Well, the thing that you need to be really clear on, all of us, is our boundaries. And that's the case in any relationship. So it's important to know your boundaries for your relationship with each of your children. What will I accept and what will I not accept? Because then in a heated moment, you're not trying to figure out, well, is that okay? I don't know if that's all right. Like, I'm not sure what to do. And you're questioning yourself.
Or making ultimatums that you just thought of on the spot.
Which I still do occasionally.
We all do it, right?
So, and you need to communicate those boundaries to them clearly so they understand them. The whole key and what I work on constantly is just staying grounded, and communicating the boundaries once, and then stepping away and don't pick up the rope. And they're going to squawk, and they're going to like it, and they're going to try to engage you, and that's just the way it is.
I'm just amazed at how many parallels there seem to be between parenting tweens and parenting real little ones, because it's so, that 3-year-old is going to cry when you're in the supermarket. I had my whole life, I've done tons of babysitting, and between being a writing coach and just working with families informally or nannying, and it's awful to be the adult saying to the 3-year-old in the grocery store, no, we're not buying that candy bar. And the kid is crying and you're just embarrassed, but you're making that choice. And I love, if you think about it in those terms, it maybe is a little less of a blow to parents' egos to think, my child is unhappy and I know why. It's because she wants something that's not, I'm not willing to push my boundaries on that. And that's okay. And she'll live.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then you're following your own intention. Like, if you're very clear on your intention as well, then there's really no question. You feel solid in why you're doing that, and because sometimes we can do things because of the person who's standing over in the next lane in the grocery store. I'm like, well, what is it going to think if I do this or that? And I've even found myself sometimes saying things according to what that person may hear, and I hate that. So I just work really hard on that, making sure I'm staying connected with my child, where I am, staying focused on my intentions and my boundaries, and everyone else is just not.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you actually, because we live in a world of presentations of perfect images, from the perfect birthday cake on Pinterest to 17 things I do with my 5-year-old before he goes to school in the morning. And I wonder if you could speak to a little bit how it is and how you just make that a priority for yourself, to be honest about your parenting experiences and how everything's not perfect, and to how has sharing imperfections helped you as a parent or helped you help other parents?
Yeah, I mean, it was not easy. Certainly nobody knew the extent to which I had PPD. My husband knew, but even I hid things even from him, how
Sure.
horrible I felt. And so people didn't know for many years, and I remember the first blog post I wrote about my postpartum depression and having depression, and it felt horrible. It felt like when I hit post on the blog that I was just like running naked down a hall. But suppressing that and stuffing it inside and hiding it was taking a toll on me spiritually, emotionally, and physically. It was doing things physically to my body to have that energy trapped in there and not flowing. So I knew I had to get it out. And, also I was really tired of moms having to sit there and feel like they're the only ones going through this, when it's so not true. We're all going through similar or even the same exact things, yet we all think we're the only one. And, I think that it's improving. I think there's a lot more on the internet now where moms are being real and sharing, but I think that unfortunately in our day-to-day interactions, usually it's still, everything's great, everything's fine. Facebook posts, and with the kid smiling, and your kid just yelled at you, and you feel like, oh, it's just a facade, and we're all really going through the same human stuff. So it helps me to put it out there and then get feedback from people like, thank you so much for sharing that. I felt like
it must be such a revelation to parents when they find you and go, oh, I'm not the only one and I don't have to hide it anymore. There's so much energy in shame too, and shame can be really self-perpetuating, and it's extra baggage. So if you're trying to parent, if you are parenting and you're struggling with being in conflict with your kids and you're worrying also about how you appear, gosh, it's just adding more weight on.
Yeah, Brene Brown, who studies shame and talks about shame, the way is to share what you're ashamed about, and shame can't live under those conditions. Shame can't live when someone else is saying, me too, it's okay, I feel that too, and shame dissipates. But if you keep it inside, it just grows and grows. And
it's impossible to get help until you say, wow, I'm really struggling with this. And I love that, again, just like for when kids are little and you can look up, wait, how do I potty train effectively? Or what should I do when my kids won't eat any food except peanut butter? That there are these wonderful tips and practical strategies people can use at later stages. Do you have a favorite question that you love to answer for parents? Is there something you get asked all the time that either is something you struggled with, or just you are so excited that you can help people with it? What's your go-to answer?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people, seem like it's okay to look up how to potty train or to do something else, but yet they think they should know how to parent clean. Or
why is that? Do we get tricked because teens and tweens talk to us almost the way adults do, so we don't see them as kids anymore?
Yeah. And what more rules and expectations are placed on us other than through society, culture, our family, our friends are always telling us, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. So everything from, I can't believe you let your kids play on the computer, to, I can't believe your child doesn't have an iPhone. Like, oh, I can't serve both masters. Lots of judgment going on. Yeah, I would say my favorite tool is called the B.A.D tool, because moms are constantly asking me, well, what can I do when I just keep losing it? When I keep getting in this heated moment and I lose it. And the B.A.D tool is what really helps me. And I like it that it's called B.A.D, because I think we really do need to be flexible as parents, as human beings. If we're rigid and coming from a place of power, we're not going to be very effective. So it's an acronym that doesn't slow down in the hurricane, it sways in the wind. Yeah. Yes. So the B stands for breathe. And the more breathing you can bring into your life, the better. Because We tend to breathe very shallowly all day, every day, and we're never really taking a full breath in and expanding to full capacity of our lungs, and we're never really expelling all the way. So there's air that's stuck in there that's, not getting cleared out. So breathing on a regular basis in the form of yoga or meditation or a daily practice is super important. And then in times of heated moments, when you're using the B.A.D tool, taking 3 to 5 at least breaths, slow, deep. And we tend to want to react right away. And really, there's no need to, unless a child's running in the road or
right, unless it's actually life-threatening.
Yeah, unless that's the case, breathing is only going to produce a better result every time, So that's the first thing. And then the E is for end result. And that's where your intention comes in.
Yeah, what the ILU piece, yeah.
What do I want the end result to be? And that's an important question to ask, because you can lose sight of that really quickly when emotions start to get high. Yeah. And then the N is need. What is needed to, create conditions for that end result to occur? Because as parents, as leaders of our kids, it's our job to support them and to create conditions for them where they can best succeed. It's not our job to control them. Right. So asking, what does my particular child need in this particular situation to produce this end result?
I really like that, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times what's needed is not what you would think is going to be needed. So instead of reacting, we want to be responding, So the D is the doing. And the thing to keep in mind there is that more often than not, you don't need to do the thing right then. That's where the space tool comes in. Maybe the best thing to do right now is to use space and be honest. And I've done this a million times before. Say, I really want to talk to you about this, but right now I'm just way too upset. So we're going to have to talk about it later. And I'm just going to step away and calm down. So that's the D part, and remembering that we don't have to do it right now. So the B is breathe. The E is end result. The N is what is needed to achieve that end result. And the D is the doing.
Nice. And cool. I know I've definitely seen parents who are probably, overflowing in terms of their stress level, say things to really young kids. Sometimes you're in a store and you see a parent say something like, stop crying or calm down. And it's very clear in that moment that the child doesn't have the end piece. The child doesn't have the tools to self-regulate for whatever reason, because of age or just overwhelmed. And and for older kids, I love that idea that the parents and teen or tween can both have a piece of what's needed. For younger kids, it's often the parent needs to be the one to say, okay, we're going to sit here and calm down, or whatever is the strategy. But that both people can participate once the child is older. It's what's needed right now that I need to do. What do you need to do? What do you bring to the table? Seems like for homework help, this just even the B.A.D strategy could be a really great way for parents to start. Just when the tension starts mounting, to breathe and think, okay, what do I want? I want my student to finish this assignment. All right, that's, and then go from there. So it takes it out of the moment.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something important, which is, I think a lot of us, when we have babies and when we have toddlers, even, we do a lot of research into the development. What can I expect at, age 3 and age 4? But not a lot of us are understanding the development of the tween and teen brain. And it's so critical, because you need to put their behavior through that filter. Because if you're putting their behavior through an adult filter, they're going to make you mad.
They seem like crazy people sometimes.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. Understanding what's going on. And that does not mean letting them walk all over us.
Yeah.
Understanding what's going on developmentally and what they are and are not capable of. Because, like you said, sometimes they do seem like little adults, and we start treating them that way. And then they'll do something that reminds us that they really
are. Your judgment isn't fully formed yet, is it?
Yeah. Right. That's quite apparent.
Yeah. Oh, how neat. So I want to open it up to questions. If anybody wants to put a question in the chat, or to we can unlock this seat. And Jess, I also would love for you to share some links. How can people find you? You give us info about the ILU, and I know you've got a great resource on that. So yeah, where can people find you and find all the great work you're doing?
Yeah, they can find me at jessryan.com, and if they go to jessryan.com/Megan, they can sign up and get the PDF of that B.A.D tool that I was just talking about. So it's just a concise description of that tool and how to use it. So that's nice. And then you can also find me on Facebook at Bad Mom, Good Mom, Jess Ryan Coaching, and Twitter, I am Jess Ryan Coach. So yeah, that's where they can find me.
Cool. Yeah, and I really like the way that you take complex things and put them into acronyms as well. As somebody who makes a lot of learning tricks and mnemonics, it's really wonderful to feel like you have that lifeline in that moment of high tension. Not, okay, what were the 15 steps that the coach told me to do? Is that, okay, bend. I'm just gonna, and if you can just remember breathe, you can probably think of the other letters as you're breathing.
Right, there's a reason why that one's first, right?
Yeah, to calm down and take that moment. All right, well, it doesn't look like we've got anybody who wants to jump into the open seat, but I'm sure if people have questions, they will come and find you and ask them. And I am just so grateful for your time today. I feel calmer just talking to you and talking about breathing, and I just know you'll be such a wonderful resource for the parents of students that I know, for being helpful and being a parent and caring for your child in the way you want to, but also keeping in mind the bigger picture, and that power struggle is just a bad place to go. I love the analogy of the image of the rope. You can't get into a tug of war if you choose not to pick up the rope in the first place.
Right.
So wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you. I love talking about this stuff, and so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk about it.
All right. Excellent. Well, thanks so much. I'll just say to end that if there are any parents out there who want a quick way to get some outside help that's not mom and dad saying, oh, your essay's not so good, here's what you can do. You can use the writing checklist, the essay checklist, and I'll put the link to that in the blab. And again, the goal is here, just make it not about you telling your kids, you have to do this because I am in a power struggle with you, but objective, a little bit more space around it. Somebody else can say, oh, here are some things you could try. So just to put a little bit of space around it. Space. I love that. All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.